as a following this morning, the Mahamudra, the Great View, Tawa Chaja Chimbo, and this is the way Benjamin Sochi Yangsi, also in his root text, more emphasis onto that, the Great View, the Mahamudra, the Great View. That means basically, through the Shine meditation, individual, able to establish the object of that concentration, which is nature of a mind. Very simple, straightforward. But now again, that doesn't really complete the whole meditation process. You have to go more further, which is called Hakdong. And the Hakdong is interesting. Shine meditation is, in conventionally looking, you are much more investing your concentration or your energy towards the subject mind. And object you are let going, and not that much you have to. Of course, understanding the nature of a mind by by training into the concentration, you are trained to do that. And no much more further effort to realizing the nature of mind itself. There doesn't exist another further energy or action rather than training into the concentration. So now when it comes to the Hakdong training, furthermore clear looking. For example, this morning we talked, once you take up all the color out, you see. And there's a second step, you're deeper looking. In a similar way, in the Hakdong training, it's more deeper looking. So it's not just appearing, it's much more deeper looking. So much more object, object investigation. So here, nature of the mind, in this case, in the Hakdong meditation, ultimate nature of the mind. And ultimate nature of the mind is not another than the nature of the mind itself. In a way we describe ultimate nature of mind, the nature of the mind in this is some another thing to see and look at it, but in reality it's just one nature, okay? One entity almost. So here, in the Mahamudra, the Great View, the Tawa Chagya Chimbo. And this becomes where I think in a Giluk tradition, Kandan Kagyu Giluk Mahamudra, in particular in this tradition, gives a much more emphasis into that. So now although of course the logic of a dependent originations, and through this kind of profound, understanding, you were able to work with the understanding of Great View, the Mahamudra. But I think it's important that in Mahamudra tradition, lots of training, lots of process you take through the examples also. There's a much more emphasis into the example. Sometimes I feel in the Madhyamika Prasankika, where it described the meditation in emptiness, is just this, the rope and the snake. That's the most popular example. The rope and the snake only. All the time they bring this. But in the Mahamudra tradition, it's much more, it goes much more popular, much more, lots of example approach of a way of meditating into the Mahamudra or the view, the Great View. Okay, so So, for example, in the examples, there is also, which is gives you both the example of an emptiness and also example of a dependent originations. This morning we talk, the conventional reality should be the witness for the ultimate truth, or ultimate truth. The dependent origination should become the ultimate witness for existence or discovering the emptiness. So, the first we go through the like, for example, one Nangyang Midimba. Nangyang Midimba means, Nangyang means is still you experience, but we usually, I feel it. So that's true. So from the Mahamudra point of view, feeling it, seeing it, just feeling it, seeing it, not more thing than that. That doesn't become the witness of how things exist. So there's one examples of like Gamekolo, means once you have an incense, and once you kind of turn, you feel kind of like a round fire or something like that. And all these things appearing as a circle light or circle fire is just due to illusion, due to one kind of condition. It transforms. In reality, it doesn't exist as light. That's all phenomena, your experience, and so on and so forth. All the function phenomena are somehow we feel exists from objectively or from its own side, independent. Something that we feel it is there. And it is just our own projections, and due to our own karmic imprints, the illusion was created, but in reality, it doesn't exist as we appear for us. Okay? That doesn't mean that doesn't exist. Okay? Now, in another way to look at it, one example is gives as like the bubble, like a essencelessness. Bubble looks kind of like it's beautiful and kind of colorful or shiny, but we know there's nothing of an essence. But for us, due to our own karmic imprint, we follow for what we see. We believe into what things appear for us, and based on that, we make such a big deal. So, the bubble example is almost is saying that you are making a big deal when the bubble was gone. For the bubble, it's just due to condition. It's just something just manifest, but in reality, nothing there's an essence into that. Basically, the example of a bubble is our emotional attached to things that how we appear for us and how we believe it on it. And that's something that we take as so big deal, something that we believe in there's something essence, also nothing. Nothing is such a things like that way. So bubble is one of the examples. Now, not only that, we are in a desire realm, and somehow due to karmically, we are, some level of a dissatisfaction we carry, constantly due to desire. We want to just looking for the next and after. So here it gives also examples. Again, this whole happens based on believing into appearing or whatever appearing for us. So it gives an example as like a mirage. Okay, mirage, it have its own kind of like elaborations, some way to things appear for our own, how things appears for our own self. But how you say? We have to, basically, our approach to reality becomes too simplicity in a conventional sense. But here, mirage example is this kind of illusion, elaboration. But reality is just like due to karmic imprint and influence by our sense awareness, just you're believing things into existence as appear existence. But now over here, not necessary to follow our desire. It is just merely cause and condition together in some level of show or some level of elaboration happen. Nothing is there. Just so mirage is one of the examples to showing that we shouldn't make the same mistake again and again. Then one example is like the reflection. Sometime in a desire realm, what happens? We have a tendency to take things personal. So this one is one of the examples, like a reflection. For example, you have almost becoming the most evidence why it is true. That is me. In a reflection. So now again, believing into reflection is not the wise way to move. So here, once things experience, karmic experience, once they become very personal, now way we to deal with it as like a reflection. This is your karmic reflection. Don't need to take everything too personal. And personal, when you take a personal, basically, there's a very clear-cut decision into the circumstances. That's it. That's it. That kind of like a true believing. So reflection is one of the examples to, awakening for our own self, not need to believe. So anyway, basically, each of those examples respond with how we behave, basically, fundamentally, believing into things how it appear and how things, So these examples is just counter-reacting, counter-respond for each of those behaviors. And the one thing is gives you those example as like a cloud. Sometimes those beautiful clouds. Anytime my kind of like a fantasy when I'm flying, sometimes you see this kind of like a cloud covered, and like fantasies to walk on those, or ski on those things, or whole kind of things. But again, all the phenomena, the conventional reality, our emotional experience, and all these things, as like those cloud, almost everything's inherent, independent, truly existence. But in reality, if you jump into that cloud, it won't be too wise. So early time I used to watch the Milarepa comic, and there's one kind of struck in me, the Milarepa jump and flying from those cliff. I used to, because it's a high altitude and Milarepa is so light, so it can, how you say, flow. Yeah. Anyway, Milarepa. You saw the movie Milarepa? Yeah. Different people have a different response. But for me, the Milarepa character, I think Milarepa should be a very. The character really doesn't connect for me personally. Who play the Milarepa. Milarepa also must be very very humor and funny also. Milarepa known as a very yogi, which is really constantly never caught in worldly mundane thoughts. That's kind of Milarepa's way. I think there's a story that while Milarepa was in his cave and he's doing a retreat, but there's another popular lamas, having lots of disciples and having a really fancy entourage and lots of happening. And Milarepa's, I think, sister or something, one of his sister, I think, and told to Milarepa, look at another lamas. They have really fancy entourage, and you should be doing something. And then she looked at him. Well, you should wear more clothes. Maybe people not coming to listen more teaching because you all the time staying naked. And so she kind of convinced to dressing up Milarepa, and basically she went to in town and brought some clothes, nice clothes. So some kind of clothes and some haven't made it is supposed to make. So she left this to Milarepa, and she left. And Milarepa, first he makes small underpant, and he kind of then he looked at for his fingers. Then looks like weird. Then he made small into all of that. Then he looked at his toes. Then he felt those all weird. So he makes small kind of for all of that. Then left over he made kind of a head, and he just kind of. So she next day when she came back, she thought he will make nice kind of fancy clothes, but he came out funny, joking. And she kind of disappointed, But then Milarepa gives kind of nice, beautiful, so kind of a noticing his, mundane thought following. Then he kind of a counter respond to make a silly for the mundane thoughts. So he made all those kind of, how you call this? Not the glove, but some kind. Finger hats. Okay. I think he also made something for his nose also. Okay. Okay. So, basically, all the distractions, all the dissatisfaction, all these kind of emotional eruptions are basically, fundamentally, it comes from the believing into things, how things appearing. And, Nangyang Midemba. Nangyang Midemba. This is one of the main training into wisdom training. Something that we have to go through this kind of a process. of course, I think I saw some kind of bumper stick that's saying, don't believe everything what you see or what you hear. We can do all that kind of things. But I think this process is just, establishing the purifying, first purifying, as like this morning we talked, taking out that colorful picture. Okay, so your consciousness, your awareness becomes much more sensitive and much more powerful, able to observe the reality. It is discovering the reality is nothing that you go and purify and clean or something like that. It's basically purifying the subject mind, which brings more clarity. Okay, so this is establishing of the empty. It's not so much emptying the object, but how you perceive the object, and that need to be empty. Okay. So, but at the same time, first this kind of effort, you push through this kind of like examples and experience and the logics, and you create some kind of emotional space. You purify emotional. So there's also individual person need to be balanced. So over here, but at the same time, from your experience, it may say you, what is this? My karmic experience, this and that. There's a lots of, should we, kind of negate and purify all those experience? Then there's this kind of balance. Matamache means once you kind of like not clearly and detailedly observing the reality, something that everything's there. Once your awareness clearly and deeply looks into the phenomena, everything's a disappear. So the conclusion of that experience, like this morning we talked a little about like a space. Everything here, which is kind of like a manifestation or created through the space, and that can be dissolved back into the space. So it's the same as like a wave. Wave comes with all kind of like a scareful or beautiful everything, but it's go back into the ocean. This comes through the ocean. It's like the wave. So here, things that sometimes we feel like this is my karmic result, and somehow accepting the result into a nature of independent inherent existence, and that becomes much more trouble. In that kind of case, sometimes not accepting the result can be lighter. So over here, really the important part is in the great view, the Mahamudra, in that training, great view, the Mahamudra, is really cleaning up of your conscious awareness experience. So, basically, things happening, karmic result you are facing through, these are, once you don't look at deeply and detailedly, they are there. But once you look more carefully, nothing is there. It's just even the karmic result, even you're going through the painful situation, even you can be in a situation in a confusion states, even you can be situation into the fear states, whatever, our wisdom, our awareness should be all these things happening, kind of not in a in an overview way, not in a detailed way. Okay, it's just happening into the overview way. When I say overview way, it means like a none looking clearly into the reality. This whole thing's happening. But once your mind, your awareness, once it's looked to that reality more deep, it's like a looking into the nature of the mind. It is like a looking into the nature of the phenomena. It is a looking into the nature of your karmic result. Okay? So, like short-term benefit and a long-term benefit. In a short-term benefit, doing such an exercise, sometimes when we get confused, is we believe both options are true, and also both options are not true, or both, like one true and one hope not true, and vice versa, all that kind of thing. So there is this kind of like such a profound dilemma that we created through the fundamentally believing into what things appear for our own selves. So, usually advice is that not as a conclusion and just merely accepting, but more looking, that karmic result, that karmic period you're going through, an individual, somehow, if you give that kind of like dose of wisdom in a daily basis, or maybe 6 times a day, how much you anyway, that looked basically it gives you a purification of your confusion, and basically whatever decision is non-inherently existence. So intention plays important role, dedication plays important role. Okay. So so now this kind of a wisdom approach, as I mentioned last time, in the Bodhisattva path is basically everything's to transform. Everything's to transform. Even the karmic result, looking into the transformation. So basically there's 2 things. From the wisdom point of view, how you transform, and from the method point of view, how you transform. From the method point of view, basically transformation is all the experience you're going through is basically becomes fundamental motivation to cultivating compassion and sympathy towards to another living being. That's the kind of method way of a transformation taking. From the wisdom point of view, basically transformation is basically you can't stop the karmic result, but you can minimize the karmic pain through the wisdom, purifying the karmic suffering or okay. Anyway, landed in the Zumba Nasota now was some so basically in the meditation in the emptiness, and basically individual person, once we kind of wake up or understands, basically I think understands as like a big joke, it's just kind of like a conventional reality just becomes like joke, big joke, cosmic joke. Okay. Milam to ya marmi babi se rangshi me jangs. So Now, sometimes when you say believing and not believing, things appear, it doesn't become too, okay, that's fine. Yes, that's true. We can kind of like some level of understanding. But still we can't let go of our own ego and the pain of our ego and hopes of our ego. And for that, examples, there's this kind of like in a dream, if you win something that, like in a dream, if you win this big lottery, or in a dream, if you have a lose all what you earn, what you have. And that's the examples to, it is just mind creation. It is just mental mind creation or mental projection rather than something that reality happening. I mean, like it is we still comes in our mind, well, it's not as like as a dream. I feel it. I go through those pain. This whole conventional answers things arise. And basically, again, there's no pain and conventional experience without projection. But still, the subject mind plays the very important role into that experience. So, though, to able to, basically, this wisdom process in a dream, if you're winning something, in a dream, if you're losing something, it is just your mental projection. Basically, this kind of like a training is trying to create independent or liberation into your conscious for your awareness. Once you believe things are inherent and true, then it naturally creates karmic glue to attach into that. So over here, dream examples. Is basically giving you some level of a method and condition to transform your grasping, your ego clinging. Okay? So anyway, these are the examples. Then one example is like when you have a too much with a Tibetan we call tiva is a bile or bile. Then there's sometimes you experience things seeing yellow and stuff like that. Jaundice, okay. So, all those Nanya Midimba as it appear doesn't exist. But sometimes those appearances are, with our own physical element, with our conscious awareness, all this kind of like a non-existent appearance. But at the same time, due to liking of the awareness and the strength of a wisdom, sometimes there's a tendency to believing. So, basically all those examples and personal experience as it appear, it doesn't exist. And that purification need to go through the process of a wisdom of a hearing, wisdom of a contemplation, and wisdom of a meditation. Okay? So, then, you kind of what happens is, of course, when you have another side of the emotion very strong, believing in the independent, inherent, truly existence, once you apply those examples and in any experience you face, you're trying to apply those examples and look at it, the first time it looks like you're yourself kind of like a silly. What you mean that? I can feel it here, But then I think you have to create some kind of like a routine or habit, those kind of like a constantly hitting on it. Then our mind is, one of the quality of our mind is it's just able to shift. Even this, scientifically speaking, the brain, they can create new path, So anyway, this kind of like a wisdom shift, what happen is one another way it push more further, that almost in the individual can be too much into a non-believing, even in the positive emotions, there's a possibility of going through in one extreme, okay, as a EP non-existence. Now for that, dependent originations, that becomes very important to establish the balance. First you react, you gradually react for this kind of like a one opposite believing into whatever appear for you, whatever you hear, whatever you feel. Then there's the examples is like a music. One of the popular examples is the music. Music, the sound. It's just, it comes from all the cause and condition together, but there's nothing inherent that you say it comes from this one individual. There's so many together. And so, but it's still, this makes you are able to respond, your emotional response for your karmic experience, dependent origination. Once you push, as if it doesn't exist, sometimes you become kind of no emotion into your experience in your life when you push one more further. And that is also not healthy. Our emotional response is one of the fundamental cushion to transformation. So here, karmic results happening from your side at this moment, in that present moment, trying to transform all that one of the extreme view. But you may react and go too far, then trying to establishing from the dependent origination. Basically, you need to still respect that karmic result as an existence, not as an independent, truly existence, but as an existence, as like a dependent origination. So that experience, you are not just ignoring, but you can take a transformation through that experience without, some kind of a heavy burden. Through the purification, you are able to transform that experience, karmic result, into a cultivating of a method, great compassion, and so on and so forth. So over here, those examples. Okay. What time is it? Very fast. I will take a short break from the examples.